Welcome to Inside ArtScroll, where the books that we read and the people that write them come to life. It's a zchus and a pleasure to have with us in ArtScroll Studios well-known mechanech, mechazik, mechaber, and a recent author, Rabbi Nosson Muller. Bruchim haba and shalom aleichem.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
And you're here alongside this beautiful sefer, this beautiful book, Steps to the Throne. And we're excited to share a little bit more about the book.
Great.
The book really, I think, is a practical primer about Chodesh Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Sersmei Tshuva, Yom Kippur. I had a chance to look at it a bit, to review it, and it was very inspiring and uplifting and extremely practical. So Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
Mirta Shem. I may have asked from books.
Amen.
I guess before we delve into the book and hear a little bit about your personal life on some level, professional life, I want to put something out there. You know, for so many Yidden, Elul is a big transition. You come off the summer, you know, maybe vacation, the pool, chopping the rays of the sun, and then you're thrust into Elul. And Elul is a serious time. It's a real time. And then it just gets more intense with Selichos and Rosh Hashanah, Sersmei Tshuva, Yom HaKadosh. It's pretty intense. And I think it's fair to say for many people, it's a certain sense of dread almost, or discomfort.
Definitely.
And maybe that's part of the way things work in Klal Yisrael. But at the same time, I found that when I read your book, it empowered me. And it took away some of that dread, or maybe even a little bit of the edge, and it opened me up to the opportunity. So is that the purpose of this book? Is that why you wrote the Sefer?
Definitely. You know, I've read this in a few different places, that there's one of the biggest phobias that Yidden have is Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. You know, people would love to take this like little pill that just makes, you know, wake up after Elul, after Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. And it's an opportunity. 100%. That's the point. The point of the book, and I write this in the Hakdam of the book. There's a beautiful story there with the Belzer Rebbe, Rabbi Belzer, that he was once speaking to a group of Rebbeim, of Malamdim, and he told them, it used to be in the good old days, people made gefilte fish, they made it with a lot of salt and pepper. He said, today, you need more sugar than salt and pepper. And that was his whole speech to the mechanech. And there was a message here. He was giving them that, yes, that salt and pepper, that intensity, that scary Elul is important. Like you said, it's a part and parcel of Yiddishkeit. It's a Yom Adin. It's awesome days. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, especially in 2024, there needs to be a little more sugar and an understanding that it's not something to be afraid of, it's something to embrace. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting for us, and he's like a father waiting at home for their child to come back.
Beautiful. You know, it's like the transition from Malkeinu to Avinu.
Correct.
And I think a lot of people focus on the Malkeinu, and this book really helps us understand the Avinu.
100%.
You know, Baruch Hashem, this is your third book, your third sefer already. And I personally, I know the one on the Haggadah is one of my favorites. I don't know if you remember this, but like a bunch of years ago, we came to Novominsk. It was the morning after the Seder. And I was sharing with you in a moment of frustration that it's the whole mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, where your children tell it to you. And how I feel that like it should be parents to children. You're like, you have to read my Haggadah. And I did.
Good,
and it's stained with wine stains.
Good.
But you know, writing a Pirush on Haggadah, you have a text to go by. And your second sefer as well, the second book, the Generation to Generation, Pirkei Avos, again, helping parents pass on that Messiah. You have the Mishnayos and you have a framework. But Elul, you come into Elul, you come to Yom Nairam, it's almost like freestyling. Like, how do you find your parameters, your boundaries? How do you figure what you should write about? And equally as important, what you don't write about?
Correct. Great question. It was so different this time around. It's like, where do I start? Where do I end? And I'm still asking that question, even though the book is finished. I saw something beautiful. Reb Shimon Schwab said when a person speaks, and the same thing goes when a person writes a sefer, he has to remember three things: leket, shikcha, and peah. 3 mitzvahs in the Torah: leket, shikcha, and peah. So he said, leket, first you have to be malakit. You have to collect from all over the place what you're going to say. But then you got to choose. He says, and if you forget something, let it go. Let it go. And he says, the most important thing is peah. Leave something over for somebody else.
Beautiful.
And it could be sometimes it's for the next volume, for the next book. Literally after this sefer went to print just a few days ago, it's still warm. Mm-hmm. You know, there was like 3-4 things I said, "Oi, I didn't say this, and I forgot about this story and this vart." But that's the beauty. That's the beauty. It's never ending. It really is never ending. It's a great question. And as you mentioned earlier, I learned Nava Minsk for many, many years. The Rebbe famously said that he wants a yeshiva that the Bacham will feel comfortable learning Kedushas Levi and Beis Levi. It's all one. The Hasidic Rebbe is the greatest Hasidic Rebbe, the Kedushas Levi and the Beis Levi. It's all one. It's all Torah. It's all the same Rabbi Shalom. It's all the same Har Sinai. And I really feel that a lot of that comes out in the Sefer. You know, trying to balance from all different camps, from all different tribes in Klal Yisrael, to bring out the beauty, whether it was a Yerucham Levovitz, whether it was from, of course, Rabbi Nosson Muller, or the Bedicheva, or the Chazon Ish, or the Satmarov, whatever it might be, just to get the flavor from everybody, but again with the same goal, with the same mission of letting everybody know that Elul's accessible, Elul's inviting, Elul's embracing, and just giving that time, that flavor.
Beautiful. You called the book Steps to the Throne, and it's really, as somebody who read the book, I really felt that way. As you get closer to the throne, the experience gets a little bit more intense. And I felt that as I looked through the book, Elul was good. It got me into the right frame of mind. Then you start thinking about Selichos, and then it intensifies. Rosh Hashanah, Shabbos Shuvah, and that was something which I found was really practical, which is that you have chapters on not just Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. It has chapters on every part of those 40 days of transformation. So Erev Rosh Hashanah, it's a chapter. It's a sugya in itself.
Big day.
Erev Yom Kippur, Shabbos Shuvah. We just think it's part of. It's not. It's a standalone thing, and you can make the experience so much more meaningful.
It's another step
by focusing. It's another step. It's another step. And also, let's not forget about the stories in the book. There's so many gewaldige maises, and most importantly, they're all short.
Yeah.
It's a morsel, a nugget. You chap it, you internalize it, and you go weiter.
Right.
We just segue for a moment, speaking about stories. I'm really curious about your personal story. I think it's fair to say probably in the history of the United States of America, you were the youngest menahel. I don't know, I didn't do a research on that, but close.
Okay.
So I remember when you were a Nova Minsk, Bacher, and then all of a sudden you're a young man, and then before I know it, you're running one of the most prominent institutions in Chicago or in the United States. How did you get into chinuch, and then how did you get into being a menahel, which is obviously a whole new world?
Okay, that's a big question. I think I always, I grew up in a home that my parents, so gesund sein, they were always there for people. Zika, Rabim, Klal Yisrael. And I went to yeshiva, Nominsker Rebbe, Ma'ayiv Rabbi. I think about him every day, thought about him so much writing the Sefer. And his life was to be there for others, for Klal Yisrael. And obviously there's no better way to impact people than going into chinuch. And it was payback time. I gave my rebbeim, a run for their money. Somebody asked me.
That's why you're a good menahel.
Yeah, of course. my first interview was, when I took entire semis and culminates in Brooklyn, I was menahel before Chicago, and I was a rebbe. I was an 8th grade rebbe by Rabbi Saul Gelbach's, your cousin,
yes,
who really believed in me and gave me that first chance. And they called me in to Taras Emes. I think I was 33 years old, and they said, what makes you think you can be a menahel? And I said, I'll be honest with you, I really have no experience, but you should know as a kid, I spent most of my time in the menahel's office. And it was true. It was true. and so many of my rebbeim did so much for me. Till today, I'm close with so many of my rebbeim that there was no better way to give back. That's what we're here for. And the Zikr Ram of being able to connect with Talmidim and Baruch Hashem, so many over the years, and then as a menahel in a different range and a different scope, but all the same, the chinuch. And in all honesty, writing a book is the same thing, just connecting with people and hopefully inspiring them to elevate themselves, to become better people.
Beautiful. Amen.
Amen.
I felt, and again, maybe this is because I knew who you were before, that when I read the book, there were definitely many things that as a parent, I could focus on, to elevate my Yom Nerom experience, and then kind of trickle down to my children, but on some level also, that things I could share with my children. When you wrote this book, did you write it as a mechanech? Did you write it just as a yid who sees the opportunity of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? What was your mindset? Where did it come from?
Okay, great question. And really, the credit for this is really Rabbi Zlotowitz, Rabbi Gedaliah's son, who's just
the next generation.
The next generation. Generation. He's unbelievable, and he pushes me. He it's been almost 5 years since the last Sefer, and it's busy.
Right.
I have a side job, I always say, as a menahel, and it's busy with the family and everything, and it just wasn't happening. And he said, we need something for Yom Tov, we need something for the Yom Tov, and let's do something. And every Shabbos, he would insist I send him just a little clip, a short vart that he could say over at the table. Short vart with a story. And I would do it for about a year and a half. And then he said, okay, we got to do it. I said, time. I need to find time. And, definitely deserves a tremendous mention here is Reb Shlomi Hoffman. He connected me with a writer par excellence, new fellow on the market. And I told him what I want. I said, we're going to send you Vertlach, we're going to send you stories, but stories that parents can connect with for themselves and give it over to their children, short and sweet. I don't think in the close to 300 pages in the book, there's a vart or a story that takes up more than a page and a half.
Amazing.
And the point of that is to be able to give that message, again, to the parent, to the mechanech, to the Rebbe, to the Mora, whoever it is, to the Rav, and then be able to give that over. Chinuch is not only for our children. We have to be mechanech ourselves first. Otherwise,
100%.
The cup's got to trickle over. It's got to. That's the way it goes.
Someone Baruch Hashem, I was there to put out a book recently, and someone came over to me. They said to me, I like your book because the stories are all a page or two,
right.
Maybe three.
Right.
And I think that maybe because of the lack of focus and concentration,
yeah.
But a little bit of inspiration goes a long way.
Tremendous.
So just double clicking on what we said before, were there moments as you're writing this book that you said to yourself, this is a good vart for a parent, or this is something that I really want one of my talmidim to hear because I think it'll transform their Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur experience?
Oh, that's a hard question. I really searched every page to do that. Every page it's like saying which one of your children do you like best. I really feel like every page, and again, my only regret almost is like we could have stuck in another 40 pieces. There's so much in there about, Naminsker Rebbe, again, used to always say that people think there's two aspects to Yid. Ben Adam l'chaveroi, between him and his friend, and Ben Adam l'mokem, between him and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said there's a third thing. Ben Adam la'atzmai. A person, Ben Adam l'chaveroi is important, Ben Adam l'mokem is important, but Ben Adam la'atzmai. Where are you up to? A person, has to do a din l'cheshbon. Those are the words, we talk about a lot, before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, but in truth, the menahel atzmai has a lot to do with ben adam l'chaveroi. Who are you? Are you just yourself? The famous Reb Shimon Shop writes about this in the Akdama of his Sefer, or is your family also you? Are your friends, your community, your shul, your school, your classroom? Everybody's yourself. There's a beautiful story, beautiful. There's a Yid, a Yerushalayim Yid, Yitzchak David Gutfarb.
Sure.
So there was a biography that was just put out in Lashon Kodesh about him, and it seems he had a custom that he would go around to shul every day, and he would try to find at least one person that he can answer Baruch Hu Shema and Amen on the Birchas HaShachar. And comes in one day, I don't recall now the name, I think it's in the book. He comes into Yerushalayim Shtibel, and there's a Choshev Yid there, and he asks him, can I listen to your brachas? He says, sure. And the Yid starts, and he's saying Baruch Hu Shema and Amen. And then they get to the bracha of She'asa Li Kol Tzarki. And this Yid, this Yerushalayim Yid, Rabbi Yitzchak David says, he just stopped. He's waiting. 10 seconds, 20 seconds. And all of a sudden, he says, this Yid turns his eyes up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he says, Rebbeinu Shalom, ich will sagen She'asa Li Kol Tzarki. I want to say it with the full proper kavanah, but I can't. Because when I walked into the shtibel this morning, in the corner I saw there was a tzebrach and a Yid. And I asked him what's wrong. And he told me he's 33 years old and he still doesn't have a shidduch. Rebbeinu Shalom, how can I say She'asa Li Kol Tzarki if this Yid is still tzebrach? There's so many. It's part of the Li. Yena Bacha, that boy who Nebuch was to brachen for whatever the reason is, let it be a shidduch, parnasa, gesund, all the issues that we all struggle with. But if the other person his needs aren't being taken care of. Rabbi Nosson Muller, please, I want to say it with kavanah. I want to say it with simcha. I can't, because Yenim is me. It's an awesome vart, but it's an awesome story and an awesome lesson that, what is Beinoi La'atzmai? What is that? Is the other person part of me? Am I doing something? Everything we do has a ripple effect of everybody around me. Sha'asa li. The question is, who's the li? Who's the li?
It brings to mind one of the stories he wrote in there, which I thought was so precious, about Rav Twersky, Hashem Yinkum Dameh, the one that was killed in Har Nof.
Yeah.
You're right there. You should say this there, but do you know what I'm referring to?
There's two of them. So
there's one with the fellow the bacher next to him.
Yeah.
Go ahead, share it with the audience.
That's great. So it was Erev Yom Kippur. It was a new bacher in yeshiva, had just come El, and he wasn't in Rabbi Moshe Twersky's shir, and it just happened to be, I guess they were sitting next to each other, on the row. And it's, before Kol Nidre, everyone's, there's a whisper in the Beis Medrash, and Moshe Twersky comes over to him and gives him a Shalom Aleichem, asks him his name, where you're from, how long are you here, like seemingly mundane questions. And he's looking at him like, I guess he gave him this look like, why you now? Like, no better time to do this? And Moshe Twersky says, when you go on a plane on a long trip, and you come in, even though you don't know the person, but if it's going to be if it's an hour trip, you don't have to say anything, you nod hello. But if it's a 10, 12-hour trip, you're gonna just have to, find out about the other person, just to hear who you're sitting next to, what, when, where. He said, we're going on a trip now. Yom Kippur is a 25, 26-hour trip, and you're sitting next to me. I have to get to know you.
Beautiful. I think when I read it, I felt like he's part of his Rosh Hashanah, he's part of his Yom Kippur experience, the fellow next to you. You're not on an island.
No.
I always think about this at some point on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, like, I'm under my talis, and I'm shuckling away, and I'm begging, and I'm pleading, and so is everybody else there. And either one mindset is that, like, we're all our individual talisim underneath our talis and davening for our own things, or we're one big tzibur of many people with many bakashas. And Rabbi Shalom, be mamala my bakashas. I'm going to be honest, that's first and foremost. But everybody else here too, it's our tzibur, it's our chevra. I'll share with you something beautiful. I haven't thought about this probably in decades, but as a child and as a bacher, I davened in Tel Yeshiva, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. It's part of the formative experience of the person that I am. Mamish, nothing like it. And we would daven, and everyone would daven together in the Beis Medrash, and at the heyday, there were, close to 1,000 people probably. And then there was a break between Kol Nidre and between Ma'ariv. We wanted to make Ma'ariv Bisman. There was always a shmuz, but there was always some time. And I didn't ask him permission to say it, so I'm not going to say who it is, but one of the members of the Anhala, he would learn Musar, Bekal, and that sound, the tune of his Musar, Hadayom is there, it puts me in a cold sweat. But then he'd stop his Musar, and he would literally walk to every single one of those close to 1,000 people to wish them a good yar. Wow. And like, as a child, I don't know, this is just part of my formative experience. And I'll be honest, I never thought about it until this moment.
That balance.
That balance, like, we're doing this together. I think that's very, very powerful.
Right. You remind me of, this is something over the last few days, a few people asked me about, different snippets in the book. This is something, definitely for mechanech, but I think for every parent, even a businessman to, Yom Kippur night, right? They say this over with the Chofetz Chaim, what you're saying now, also, the Chofetz Chaim, would spend Yom Kippur by night being mechazek bachurim, weaker bachurim, singing with them. Rabbi Arber would sing with them. The Gedolim, they understood what Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is, but they also understood, like you said, it's not just me, it's everybody. And yes, I need my musar, I need my davening, but what about these bachurim who need the chizuk? So the Alta von Kelm, his label Yo brings this. The Alta von Kelm his Talmidim came in for Shachar Yom Kippur morning, and he was still standing by his stender from the night before. They told him, Rebbe, it's a long day, davening, fasting, you're not young. So he told him, the Alta von Kelm. Listen to this. Listen to what he told him. I had to look it up. Like I saw it first brought down in a sefer. He said, there's hundreds of bachrim in this yeshiva. Throughout the year, I'm going to talk to all of them for different things. He says, but if I talk to a bacher, Reuven, Shimon, on a random Tuesday night in Kislev and Teves, so of course it's going to be a serious talk about his davening, about his learning, about his midas, but that's all it's going to be. What I do is Yom Kippur night, I think about every single bacher in yeshiva and what I have to work on with him this year, So like this, in Kislev, when I am talking to him, I'm going to do it with a tam of Yom Kippur. We all think differently Yom Kippur, right? Yom Kippur night, we all make different decisions. We all, because we're there. We're not on the steps. We're at the throne. We're at the throne. So Yom Kippur night, we deal differently. Let's just say that. The Alter from Kelm stayed up a whole night, going through every conversation he's going to have. Now, obviously, we can't all do that, to that level. But maybe the big things in our life, what we want from our children, where we want to get to in life, in our own personal steiging, and anything that a person struggles in, Yom Kippur night is that time to think about it like this. Even if it's December, January, August, that I'm going to be thinking about it or working on something, but you already put in
a perspective from
a perspective.
Beautiful.
Unbelievable thought from the Alter from Kelm.
I want to highlight something in your book which jumped out at me. There's amazing machzorim for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. ArtScrolls is the classic one, obviously. I still use the old classic ArtScroll machzor that I got for my bar mitzvah decades ago. It's been my companion as the Bal Tefillah, as a Shliach Tzibur, as the Bal Tekeh through many journeys, and it's still mine. I'm not switching it up for any of the transliterated ones. No. But what I noticed about this is that it's not a machzor, but you went through the Yom Neirah davening, the tefillos, and you picked out certain points where you can kind of hyper-focus or elevate them. And I envision myself, maybe this depends how gutsy I am, but this in Lakewood, you have to
be careful.
Gotta be careful what you put on your shtender.
All your kids are in school?
Yeah, all my kids are in school. But Baruch Hashem, kids in Shaduchim, to have it maybe on my shtender, I'll take the cover off. Right. And that when I get up to that particular thing, to take a moment and just to reflect, it'll give me a deeper understanding and it'll make my tefillah that much more meaningful. And I find that, Rosh Hashanah Kippur davening is long. It is long. But it's important. And the more you do to really elevate it and to make it personal and meaningful, the more you walk away feeling inspired. And I feel that there's so many juicy nuggets, tidbits in here that just take basic things that we say all the time on Rosh Hashanah. I want to ask you a question, because this is a question I think that a lot of us struggle with. And I'm asking for a friend. It's one of my favorite sessions at there.
Where's Shirley Besser?
Asking for a friend. Rosh Hashanah on some level, what do I want to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu? I need parnasa, and I need shalom bayis, and I need personal growth, and I want nachas for my children, and shidduchim, and the list is endless. And there's almost no opportunities to do that. Maybe Avinu Malkeinu. So what do we do? Avinu Malkeinu ein lanu melech ela ata parnasa. That's really, melech chafetz b'chaim, gesund. As somebody who obviously went through the sugya very carefully, give us perspective. There's so little of personal bakashas. And so much of being mamlech, melech malchei amlachim, putting him on the kisei hadin, putting him on that steps, the throne that's in front of us. What's a good perspective of, on one hand, obviously not losing sight of what the real purpose of Rosh Hashanah is, but making it feel like we're not forgetting about our, bein adam la'atzmai.
Right. So that's a great question, and all the Svarim talk about this. I like to use Matasio, the Mashgiach, so it's hard to say that. Yeah. Hard to say. Yeah. Hard to believe. I remember speaking to him about this mashal, actually. I remember where and when I spoke to him about what he wrote in one of his Svarim in Matnas Chaim, which I quote a lot. He brings the mashal with the melech, with the yedid of the melech, who only wanted to do the greatest honor for the king. And he told the king that he'd like to build him. He was very good at architectural talents, and he wants to build him a palace. And when the king heard that, the king gave him what we'll call carte blanche, credit card. Go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's, go to wherever you got to go.
Buy whatever you need.
Buy whatever you need when you need. And he came and went. Everybody else, had to stand on it. But this guy's here. He's here to build the palace. He's here to go, whatever he wants. And the reason people bystanding were asking, hey, what's going on here? Why is this guy always cutting through? And why is this guy not even looking at the price? Because he's building for the king. And Matasio said that when we come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the beginning of the year, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, there's not a lot of requests personal. Chazal stuck in here and there a line. He says, all we're telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, I want to build you a palace. When we tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu sincerely, we really mean it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, L'mancha Elokim Chayim, so then we get that credit card for parnasa, for shalom bayis, for shidduchim, for gesund. Because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees you're building my palace, then everything else is all inclusive. It's there, you get the credit card. So, Zakir Matzo, you don't need to put in personal requests. Because when you're telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu, L'mancha lekim chayim, that we want to build you a palace, saying, then everything is it's all there. It's all there. Everything is coming. It's beautiful. It's easy. It's really easy. Because which king wouldn't want you? I can't just do it. I can't do it. There's a beautiful story in there, long story of the Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Chanan, but the same thing about a bacher who came to the Chafetz Chaim, and it was Yom Kippur, and he was crying, he had a tremendous amount of tzaras, and he was hoping for a bracha for the Chafetz Chaim that all the tzaras would go away, and just skipping the details, and the Chafetz Chaim told him, "Just to live and learn."
Oh yeah.
Just to live and learn. You should sit and learn. He said, "You didn't hear me. I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, F. I have a million problems." And the Chafetz Chaim again said, "You should be shakua and learning. You should be." He walked out. The boy was more tzibrochen than when he went in. And Rabbi Chanan Vasim in the Talmud of the Chafetz Chaim saw this boy crying, and he tapped him on the shoulder. It was Yom Kippur. He said, "What's going on?" So he told him what happened. He said, "I came to the Chafetz Chaim for bracha," and he tells me I should. She says, "You don't understand. The Chafetz Chaim took care of everything. He told you should be able to sit and learn. The only way you're going to be able to sit and learn is if all these daigas, if all these worries go away. You can't get a better bracha."
Beautiful. I do feel, though, that that's a lofty level, to build a melech, a palace, and that should be Ritzaneinu lasas Ritzainecha. And that's probably why there's an El, so that when we get to that Rosh Hashanah, we're in a different mindset. I just saw this from Rav Pam. I never saw this ever before, that Rosh Hashanah is called Oiri. And if you wrote it in your book and I missed it, I apologize. Rosh Hashanah is called Oiri. It's your light. He says, if you were in one of those dark tunnels in Gaza and you come out and you see the brilliant sunlight, it is so painful. How are you able to enjoy and appreciate that newfound light? Slowly but surely you adjust to it.
Steps.
Rosh Hashanah is light.
Steps.
It's steps. Mamish what it is. And in Elul, every day you need to grow a little bit, so that when that incredible light, when the Yishi Hashem salvation is there, you're not, you're comfortable, or you're in the right frame of mind. Beautiful, mamish, gorgeous. Could you share with the island, because there's so many great stories, and as somebody who collects stories, I always say, "Look, medrash ikar la ma'isa." Like I read a book and I'm like, okay, which story can I use in this speech?
We're folding the pages.
And which story can I say at the Rosh Hashanah table? And what can I share with the different Balbatim at the different shurim? But there's a bunch of personal stories, I think, in there. But there's a very personal story there about your grandparents with the dollars. That story, I think, is a game changer, and it's a beautiful story for every person to think about before they buy the book, and definitely to buy the book to flush out the story. Do you mind sharing that story? It's not a long story.
Sure. The story, actually, my father, Zogazun Zain, said over by my grandmother's Levaya. It's close to 30 years ago. My grandparents, they weren't in concentration camps, but they were running from the Nazis. My father was actually born on the run through France, and he ended up in Antwerp, ended up in Montreal in the early 50s. And it was tight. It was very, very not easy at home. Parnasa-wise, food, clothing. I remember correctly, my father told me my grandmother, 12 years didn't buy a new dress, nothing. It was aniyas, but again, Erlachid, and they did what they had to do.
Right.
They did what they had to do. And it was an Erev Yom Kippur, and my grandfather went to daven mincha in the younger Zil of Montreal. Today, it's not as full as it used to be, but on Erev Yom Kippur there'll be 400 or 500 people coming, packed. And Erev Yom Kippur, even people maybe a whole year didn't come. And as we all know, there's a minig, the shuls, this pushkalach and plates. There's 40, 50 plates on the bima. And everybody's, again, they were talking in the olden days, 2 pennies, a nickel. Balbat Shiyid put down 10 cents, into all the plates. And my grandfather came to shul and he put a nickel here and a nickel there, and just getting ready to daven mincha.
That's all he had.
That's all he had, and that's all most people there had. And then a Rolls Royce pulled up to the shul, and person, Mr. Jack Lowy, in the Haim he was Rabbi Yankov Lev, but he came with a chauffeured Rolls Royce, and all the kids came running. It was almost like a hush. Whoa, he's coming in, and he walked up the stairs. Beautiful, it's a beautiful shul, and he comes up to the beam, and my grandfather's watching, and he pulls out of his pocket an envelope with 100 single dollar bills. And that's like
That was in the 1950s. That was a fortune.
Probably a fortune, probably like $1,000 in it.
More.
And maybe even more. And he took out 2 crisp dollar bills and he put them on every plate. And it could be to other people, it's like, okay, maybe take a picture, send it to the head, and that's about it. But to my grandfather, it was like, I wish I could do that. He wasn't jealous, but he was broken. He so wanted to be able to give, but he couldn't. And he came home after Mincha, and as they were sitting down to the Sudas, I'm upset because my grandmother noticed that my grandfather's mood wasn't. She said, Shleim Alai, what's bothering you? She said, nothing. So he told her. So she said, listen, Rabbi Nosson gives everybody their thing. Like any wife would say, he was mechazika, we have ours, we do what we could. Rabbi Nosson only once. And that was it. That was the end of the story. Forgotten. I get you. Everyone should have a gemach sima tova. They went to shul. It was long forgotten. Year goes by quickly, and it's Erev Yom Kippur again. And my grandfather, it's time to go to Mincha in the young Israel. He puts on his hat and jacket, and right before he's walking out the door, my grandmother says, Shleim Alai, wait a minute. And she goes into the bedroom, and she comes out with a manila envelope. And in the envelope was 100 single, some crumpled maybe, dollar bills. And my grandmother, who again, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel every week, put away $2 a week that her husband should be able to go to shul. She said, Shleim Alai, nah, nemdach, take it and go and feel proud that you too can give $2 to every plate. And the story is, it's an awesome story about my grandfather, how it bothered him so much, how he yearned. The story about my grandmother, Messias Never, I have no doubt that there were weeks she couldn't put $2. But maybe the next week she put 3, and there were times, and the lesson that, there's so many lessons to take out of this story, but is that, we come at the end of the year, like you said, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and we start thinking back, and and you look at the guy next to you, and like he's putting, he's I don't know, he finished Shas 3 times, and he gave tzedakah, and he's just davens perfectly. And what about me? But a yid has to understand that every day, every little step that we do, every inch, every foot, everything we take, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also putting it in his manila envelope. And we all come at the end of the year, we say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, here's our envelope. It might not have been perfect. Some dollars are crumpled. Some might be a little ripped. But this is who I am. This is what I want. And this is my deposit. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes that envelope and he hugs you. And you have to read that the Lashon is Tana de Belio writes how HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls together everybody. He's so waiting for us. He so wants our envelopes. He so wants our quarters, our nickels, our dimes, our dollars too. But everything, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting. And because it's difficult, like you mentioned earlier, someone mentioned to me this week that Erev Rosh Hashanah is his hardest day of the year. Selichos it's a 2 hours, 2.5 hour davening.
Fast, the
right, and some people fast, and Hataras Nadarim you got to do after. It's like whoa. So it's all in perspective. It's all the mindset, and really, I would suggest to such a person 2 things. Number one, if you're going to think of it as a regular Tuesday, Wednesday davening, then you're right. I mean, you're used to a regular Tuesday 42 minutes with the coffee. There's no way then it's almost unbearable. I hate to talk like that. But what happens if Erev Rosh Hashanah is like just a mindset? Today is like a Shabbos davening. It's a Yom Tov davening. So then it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Every Shabbos is 2.5 hours. You just got that switch in your mind that it's not Tuesday. No, it's not a regular Tuesday. It's Erev Rosh Hashanah, and Erev Rosh Hashanah is like Shabbos morning. It's like Sukkot, first day Sukkot. It's an hour earlier. It's an hour less than what you would have. That really changes it. And of course, secondly, like you said earlier, if you just take a few minutes, there's so many svarim out there, so many books out there, and like
including
you said,
steps
of
to
course,
the throne.
and an ArtScroll Selichos, they're beautiful. Take a few, and especially the Iker Piyutim, the Yud Gimel Midah Sharachmim, the Keler Chapayim, the Avinu Malkeinu, Psukim. Just connect a little bit. It'll change your 2 hours, and you'll see, hey, where to go. It was so quick.
To bring things our discussion to a close, someone buys your book and they read cover to cover, and they're on the last page, and Psachlon Rushar Be'es Ne'ilah Shar. One chapter closes and another opens, and you go home on Matzah Yom Kippur and you try to gauge success. How was my last 40 days? The number 40 is always transformation. And the classic response when you ask someone, how was your Yom Kippur? And they'll be like, or how was your Rosh Hashanah? What do they say? Ask me next year.
Right.
This is your story, right?
This is my story.
Share what the Red Minsker Rebbe told you when he asked you that question and what the perspective should be.
Great. Like I write in the Akdama, the Sefer, like the Rebbe was my Rebbe, what should I tell you, in every aspect. I was zeicha to tremendous kirva and just davening by the Rebbe, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, talk about Klal Yisrael, the way he cried. Were you ever there, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur?
I was never there Rosh Hashanah Kippur, but I was there on Hashanah Rabbah. And you know what? I was there many other times that the Rebbe cried.
Yeah, Klal Yisrael.
You didn't need an opportunity.
You know, most people ask, where do you cry the most? By, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. So, when we're davening for our children, or in the San Taikev, or, Zocheinu L'chaim. I don't, everyone has their thing. I've never met a person that says, where I cried the most? By a Ben Yaakov Ephraim. And that's where the Rebbe used to literally collapse on the Amud. Ben Yaakov Ephraim. Because that was Klal Yisrael. He cried for Klal Yisrael. So the Rebbe's Yom Neroim was a fusion of just everything, everything. And the way he cried before Tkiyah Shofar, there was never a time they didn't talk about the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. Especially now, it's like we have to mention this. The Rebbe, before Tkiyah Shofar, he would talk about Klal Yisrael, and everybody on their own has to do tshuva. But remember our brothers in Eretz Yisrael. Every year, there was never a time that he wouldn't talk about our brothers in Eretz Yisrael. So it was a Matzah Yom Kippur. Let's just get to this story. Yeah. It was Matzah Yom Kippur, and I was sitting with the Rebbe myself, eating the Suda, and the Rebbe, it was just, again, this has been 30 years, just one random year. It was a few years before the Rebbe's Petira. And the Rebbe turns to me, he says, No, see, how do you know you had a good Yom Kippur? So I think I mentioned exactly what you said. I said, we'll find out.
Right.
So he goes, no. Tomorrow. I said, tomorrow? How am I going to know tomorrow? He said, if tomorrow your davening is better, if tomorrow your learning is a little better, if tomorrow your Ben Adam L'Chaveh is a little bit better, then you know you had a good Yom Kippur. But if your tomorrow is the same as it was 2 days ago, you didn't have a good Yom Kippur. That's the point. That's these 40 days. It's to take us all the way, to transform us. And it does. We just got to hold on to it.
Amazing. Yasher Kayakado, this was a great schos. I highly recommend this book. And I think the Olam should buy it. I don't think it'll just transform their Ben Adam L'Chaveri and their Shemini Esrei the day after Yom Kippur. I think it'll transform the whole Elul Yom Neroim. And this year, like you said, more than ever, we need Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. We need Gzar Din L'Tayv. Let's daven for ourselves. Yeah. Let's daven for our tzibur. Let's daven for Klal Yisrael. And most importantly, let's daven for the Gula Shalem.
Amen.
Yasher Kayakado, this has been a great stuff.
Thank you.
Ksiva Chasim B'Tayva.
A good year.
Okay, thank you.